Hello, are you his friend? I'm Simon's friend. Me too. Hey! No, you're not. Yes, I am. And they don't have trains. No, they don't have a train. They don't have one. They don't have a train. Because it's broken.
In early childhood settings, teachers are well prepared to work with young children if they can feel confident in responding to 4 questions. If they can say that, yes, I know how to observe and listen to children in order to really see how they are making meaning of the world around them. And then the second question is, do I know how to interpret what I see? How do I make sense of what I see the child doing or saying in order to be able to understand their ways of thinking? And then the third thing, and this is where I think the connection with child development knowledge is really important, is do I have a vocabulary? Do I know how to describe the learning that I see? And then the fourth thing, and this is something that I think we're getting better at, is do I know how to share it with others? Do I know how to make it visible to others so that others can see how children are learning in the first 5 years of life? So if a teacher can answer those 4 questions, they can use the body of child development knowledge that we have access to in their work as an early childhood educator.
So lots of problem solving, kind of engineering type stuff.
One of the things that we're learning is that teachers need to really observe the children. This means that the teacher must conduct small group activities, engage in individualized instruction, do a lot of observation.
And they need to have some of the prerequisite knowledge about how children are different, and also how to observe and what to observe, and how that can be helpful for them.
That's the broken one. This is happy face.
What are you? Oh, that's so. Those are different kinds of moons.
Yeah, this is the broken moon. That's the eyes.
Observing children gives me an opportunity to really see a child and look at what their strengths are and see how they operate and the best way that they function and to determine their development.
Will a car crash?
Oh, okay.
They are waking up.
They are waking up? Why? What time is it?
It's 30 o'clock. It's time for breakfast.
30 o'clock, time for breakfast? Okay.
Oh.
With my small group, I'm looking for various things to see where they are in their development, how they're communicating, if they're asking me questions, how they're answering my questions.
And if other teachers observe one of my children, they would write down whatever they see on a sticky note and then just put it like in the staff room, and then I'll get that. So even though we're focused on one group of children, we all kind of observe and watch everybody else. And if we see something mentionable, then we'll write it down.
The way that we need to pay attention to the individual child is to be a good observer. It really begins with observing.
How would it be if you and me went home and checked in the mailbox? Oh! Many Mother!
Some issues around the physical part of observing, like not to have too many children there, so that small groups are helpful, and to have an environment where there aren't too many distractions. And so we need to provide time for early child educators to observe and to provide them with the conditions for observing as well.
Truck.
Truck. What rhymes with truck, Arian?
Truck and duck.
truck and duck. So you could draw a picture of a truck and a duck.
So one of the first expectations for my program, for my teachers, is that they must take the observation and assessment class offered at the local college. And if they don't have that class, then we will provide time and the resources for them to take that class. Then what we do is we assign a lead teacher to that teacher for purposes of guiding, supporting, peer review. We will also provide workshops for those teachers that may need reminders. And then a couple of times a year, we bring in experts to do trainings on assessments to help our teachers throughout this process.
When we do screenings, typically what we are trying to do is to determine if this child may be at risk for any developmental delays or maybe need of special services. And so the only thing that we do with the screening is to say this child may be at risk, let's do a full evaluation. We do not actually use a screener to diagnose a developmental delay or a language delay.
As we're looking at some concerns that we may have with children, we're asking key staff members to interact with them to make sure that it's not a language barrier or that it's not a lack of understanding because I'm a monolingual teacher and I did that in English.
Síguele, papi, síguele cortando.
We do utilize both languages all the time when we have concerns with children as well, making sure that it's not a language problem. So I want to make sure that the child has the opportunity to express that in their primary language as well.
With some children, we would say, we would look at that developmental screening and we would say, we really believe that this child's milestones are right on target where we would expect them to be. There are going to be other children that right away from that screening instrument, we're going to say, we have deep concerns. We have real concerns that there are things going on here that need specialized supports. And in those cases, we call in those specialized services for more in-depth assessment.
If we have a concern with the child as far as speech and language, we bring those concerns to the attention of the speech and language specialist so she can come into the classroom in the natural environment to screen the children, looking for the concerns that we've brought to her attention, and she will record those on her evaluation form, her assessment form, so that we can share that with the parent.
As teachers, as educators, if we are concerned about a child's development, we first of all need to bring that concern to the families. I ask for the family to come and have a face-to-face meeting with me, and I speak to the concern. Then we tell the family we're here to support them and guide them through the system in supporting the child. And we will refer that child to the local school district to receive assessments or to have assessments done on the child, which in turn will dictate to us where the needs are and how the school system and how we can best support the child.
You got a cowboy book. I want to be a cowboy. I want to be.
Disabilities coordinators look at the scores for every child where there's an area of concern or borderline for an area of concern. They make a plan for that child. So they talk with the parent and they decide if they want to make a referral to the school district or to regional center to really do a more formal assessment to see if the child needs supports.
So if we determine that we're going to assess the child, at that time an assessment plan is formed, and then the district will come out, they will send a psychologist out to assess the child in the classroom setting. They have a meeting with the parent and they have a meeting with the teacher to look at the child as a whole in all areas, at school and at home. And then after that, once they've done the assessment, then they have an IEP meeting where they talk about the results of the assessment with the parent. So at our IEPs is the parent, the psychologist, the teacher, and myself. So that way we can look at, these are the needs of the child.
If it's a behavioral concern, we might talk with the parent and get their permission to involve the mental health consultants to work out a plan with the teachers and the parent to support that child and maybe refer that child for early periodic screening and detection.
So our communication with parents in regards to concerns with children has many levels. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is our student study team, and let me explain the process of our student study team to you. As we've been talking about some of your concerns with Justin that you've brought to the teacher and some of our concerns that we see with Justin in the classroom, this is the process that we go through to identify what those concerns are and come up with a plan of action to be. Because our families and our teachers have such close relationships, the parent knows at any time they can call, ask questions, they can come in and ask questions. Sometimes it's an observation. Let's look at your child. How does your child communicate with you? So it's building a lot of that groundwork with families and building that connection and that trust.
In formative assessments, we use observations, we get language samples from the child, we observe the child interacting with other children and with the teacher, and we see the child's performance across different activities and tasks and domains. And with that, we can get a profile of what the child may need, where we need to start, in what domains, in what areas for that specific child.
That ongoing assessment. In California, we have the DRDP, both for infants and toddlers and for preschoolers. That is a great tool to keep informing our ongoing service to children.
All of the staff have been trained on writing anecdotal records. Any staff member that sees a child doing something will record what they see happening and give that information to the teacher so that the teacher can document that information in the DRDP and also talk with parents about that information.
We try to stay mindful of the measures that are used. So we're constantly, I guess, taking notes and communicating with each other because sometimes one of us might catch something that the other doesn't see.
Rainbow. What letter is that, Aurora? I use this binder to keep track of all the assessments. Each teacher has their own binder for their small groups. And then because I'm the pre-K teacher, I have all the pre-K children in here. So basically I just keep tabs on developmental milestones that they're making.
When we're assessing somebody that's a dual language learner, we make sure that somebody in the classroom is there that's able to speak the child's language, because sometimes there could be an issue with the teacher not understanding what the child is expressing just because of the language.
Porque la veo que a veces es un poquito tímida cuando está en el salón. Yo sé, tal vez en la casa es diferente como ella es en la casa.
Pero ella juega más en particularmente con su hermano.
Parents are excellent sources of information and should be part of that assessment process. We need to be able to interview parents and get as much information as possible from parents.
En el camino vengo contando con ella incluso los carros que van pasando.
There's a lot to collect there, and this is where I think parents can really help a lot around what the child does at home. What does the child like? What does the child play with, etc. These are all, I think, important for developmental assessment. It's not just what the teacher is watching, it's also what is the parent noting.
Can you finish it in 15 minutes? Yeah.
Teachers observe, teachers document, and that documentation becomes a record of children's meaning-making processes. And that's how we know they're learning.
Start picking up evidence. And by that I mean, what are you documenting? What is the child producing in terms of drawing? And I think videoing is a key tool for teachers to learn from.
We take a lot of photos of children to show it might be a block structure that they've built, it might be something in the sandbox that they've done, so we do take photos of that as well. We also will make copies of work samples because of course the children always want to take their work samples home and share them with their parents, so we make copies of those where the teachers are able to document what occurred.
We will use a lot of those observations, the work samples, to create documentation boards so parents can see those, see the learning goals and objectives and the actual photographs and work samples, and track their children's learning and development.
The other piece would be to have colleagues with whom you can discuss some of those observations in confidentiality in regard to the parents, but being able to discuss that and learn from that, and then being able to apply that into work with young children.
Oh, Yoon Sung took the garage and he took the rampway.
So we create assessment portfolios that we can discuss in staff meetings when we have planning time away from children and can really reflect and analyze the data we've collected to be able to use that to plan a program that is individualized.
She is a dual language learner, and she's really working hard on doing complete sentences. In your planning sheets, do you see that she's doing complete sentences, or the formulaic where she's doing parts of sentences and phrases?
Parts and phrases, but now she's getting more detail, I would say, into her sentences.
Yeah. We have to be very cautious about how reliable the information will be when we try to interpret results and make decisions about children.
Dice, buenas noches, gato. ¿Dónde está el gato? ¿Dónde está el miau? ¿Cómo hace el gato miau? Miau. Allí el ratón. Aquí está el ratón pequeñito, pequeñito.
We don't have enough or sufficient assessment instruments that are normed on dual language learners. So a lot of what is available or what is published is based on monolingual children of each language, and we know that the acquisition of the two languages by dual language learners is different from the acquisition of monolingual children in that language. So children may know certain things in one language and not in the other.
Oh, estaba buscando comida.
In terms of assessment, the teachers in each classroom come together and they design a plan of action for their classroom, and then centers come together and design plan of action for their center. So the teachers use the assessments to plan for each child, and then we aggregate it to plan for the group of children in each classroom or clusters of children in each classroom.
The DRDP results are used for individualized goals as well as program-wise goals. So we have individual goals, classroom goals, and then program goals.
DRDP nosotros les llamamos por cortito, y en evaluación nosotros hacemos observaciones con los niños.
So we sit down with the parent and we review the result of the DRDP, and together with parent we develop a plan.
¿Alguna meta que quiera en el desarrollo cognitivo o de lenguaje para ella, que quiera que nos estemos enfocando en el salón?
Por decir yo lo mismo que aquí están haciendo así.
We have 2 parent conferences during the year, and then we have another ongoing home visit where we do check in with the parents. The parent conferences, usually we talk about different goals that we set for the children, and we use the observations to set those goals.
We try to include the parent in the plan as much as possible. So even going over the DRDP, where they can actually see what we observe, is helpful in getting them connected and trying to work with them at home as well as school, trying to do the same activities that we do here in the home.
Once we plan, right, what we are going to do with that child after we do these assessments, these formative assessments, getting information about where the needs may be. What we want is to monitor and to look at the child's progress with the interventions that we develop or that we implement, and to see if they're working or not. You know, do we need to change them? Do we need to adjust them? Do we need to intensify them? And the only way to do that is by actually having a continuous assessments over time.